Well, this morning, the East Hampton School District community is waking up on high alert, and extra police presence will be at the schools in town today.
Well, this comes after an active shooter threat that sent the middle school into lockdown on Tuesday.
Let's get right out to Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Marcy Jones live outside of the middle school this morning. Marcy, tell us what happened and what's expected today.
Good morning. Well, less than 24 hours ago, this was understandably a terrifying situation for families. Eventually, the threat was proved to be non-credible. However, this emotional distress has already taken a very large toll. Now, according to police, the lockdown here at East Hampton Middle School was prompted by a phone call around 1 p.m. A person reporting an active shooter inside the school. Immediate action was taken, and the situation actually made all 4 schools in the district go into lockdown. Multiple law enforcement agencies from near and far responded, including state police and U.S. Marshals. Thankfully, after a thorough search of all the schools, nothing was found. However, the situation was still very upsetting. Back out here live at Last Check, police said they were looking to get the person who called in this non-credible threat into custody. However, we've reached out to them several times this morning to see if any arrests have been made. We're still waiting to hear back. As soon as we get that information, we'll bring that to you. But for now, that's the latest. Reporting live at East Hampton, Marcy Jones, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.